My most recent Dark Souls video performed far better than I had anticipated. While I do not believe it was in any way a perfect video, I found frequent criticisms towards the ideas I was trying to portray. I want to clarify the goal of the video. I set out to explore and express my growing sentiment towards retrospective storytelling in games, this sentiment being more disdain. And I want to make it clear, I'm not quite like Blishrup.
This is one of the many reasons DS2 is on top.
I am not a believer in this, just to make that clear. My examples for retrospective storytelling were Dark Souls, Hollow Knight, and the open world Legend of Zelda games. Now, Dark Souls became a heavily commented topic, of course, and while I do admit that I may have oversimplified and potentially diminished the effect of Dark Souls 1 and 3's finales in the video, I want to make one thing clear. Dark Souls 1, I believe, is the best example of retrospective storytelling. I think that this comment spoke greatest to Dark Souls' style of storytelling, maybe highlighting more on how it's oversaturated, and this did the best job at not diminishing Dark Souls and its importance nonetheless. I will stand on 3, however, being a weaker example. Though it is interesting the concept of the Soul of Cinder being the players who linked the flame before, I still believe Gale is much more satisfying and intriguing as a final battle overall. And my dissatisfaction towards the Soul of Cinder definitely helped in the appreciation for Gale. You see him throughout the Dark Souls 3 DLCs, interacting with him. He sends you to the Mirror World, and you find him at the end of the ash-covered wasteland. In my video, I feel I may have missed the mark, however, when it came to open world Zelda games. While playing those games, most if not all gameplay happens in a world where everything has already happened. My negative intentions were more pointed towards open world Zelda games storytelling design than Dark Souls. I feel Dark Souls handles it just fine, but with Breath of the Wild you merely peer into the past through memories. I would argue finding 4 relatives or descendants of warriors and conquering their divine beasts in order to reduce Calamity Ganon's health in the endgame is lackluster compared to a story you truly interact with, and squanders the large potential of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom's format to telling a story. I wish they had put me into the past, shown me a world at war with the Guardians in Ganondorf, allowed me to play inside of that world that falls to Ganon. I mean, countless other video games do a great job at engaging gameplay, even if you lose. While I know it takes a ton of time and effort to reconstruct the world of Breath of the Wild in the past and future, that idea to me shows how much potential open world Zelda has. If they would just allow you to interact with the world of the past physically. I mean, even in Tears of the Kingdom, they showed NPCs can be engaged with better in combat. Instead, I argue that when it comes to these Zelda games, the format with which Dark Souls tells its story is used as a crutch or cliche in order to tell a story in a broken world and have that story that takes place happen in the past. And that even highlights that amnesia in games is a cliche of sorts. If it worked for Dark Souls, it will work for us, right? I do not think it did. In my opinion, on Hollow Knight, I believe to have been the most incomplete. I agree heavily with the comment simply stating Hollow Knight is a bad example, especially because I only used the Hollow Knight boss ending as my evidence on the oversaturation of storytelling popularized by Dark Souls. My understanding is that there is some other boss of sorts to truly finish off Hollow Knight as a game, and I guess that would make me wrong. Totally and completely wrong. I would even argue that to some degree this shows just how good of a job Hollow Knight did at making a default ending, making it feel disappointing and dissatisfying, which in turn will encourage players who truly love the game to continue exploring and find this true finale. And that shows confidence on Team Cherry's part. They trust that players will go and find some, if not the most important parts of their game without having to hold the player's hand and take them there. To make up for my Dark Souls 3 trash talk in my last video, here's some credit to Dark Souls 3. Archdragon Peak is peak. It's a fascinating and fantastical area hidden in Dark Souls 3. And in order to get there, you have to do some cryptic ass bullshit. For me, I originally found a dragon sitting crisscross applesauce overlooking a ledge, and after researching online, aka Reddit, I found I needed to get an emote like his and do it next to him, and I would be sent to Archdragon Peak. And this area isn't some side area with maybe an Easter egg. There is an entire dragon gimmick boss fight alongside one of the funnest duels in DS3, the Nameless King. And again, they trust that players will find their way here, risking countless players not experiencing this entire area. Team Cherry did the same thing with Hollow Knight. That is impressive and goes to show a capacity as developers in making truly remarkable games. So I am sorry to Hollow Knight for diminishing its story. I'll try and beat these so-called readers soon.